Walker, and joining me is Brent Kay. Welcome to the Sports Den on Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly make sure to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores via iOS and Android. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Hey, can't beat that price. One more thing, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Brandon, how you doing today?
You know what? I almost forgot. It's another W, another week, another waving of the flag. I mean, this is really, and we'll go right to it. We'll start with our beloved Jets taking a trip to Lambeau, where the Packers have been invincible at home as of late, and coming back from London with their loss against the Giants, maybe feeling a little bit of jet lag. You come home against a team that traditionally, you sleep on, but as my topic says, don't bet against the Jets. What did you like from yesterday?
I really like the defense. Just to sum up thoughts in Packer Nation in one picture, one headline I saw today was that something is going really wrong if Sauce Gardner is wearing a cheese head celebrating, and he was the player of the game yesterday. Him and Quentin Williams. Quentin Williams was a beast. I believe he had 2 sacks, several tackles, a blocked field goal, forced fumble. He did a little bit of
a pass down, something like that.
Yeah, he hit every stat that you could. This is it reminded me of a Rex Ryan era Jets game where a quarterback didn't do much, but a solid running game and great defense, and they won big. And if that's the formula that works, roll with it. I was surprised to see the passing game and Zach Wilson stuffed as much as it was. And some of the play calling was a little iffy at points, where the one time they do decide to pass was in that drive right before halftime, where they ended up without the field goal, and went into halftime 3-3. At the time, it looked like, oh, this could be a move that really bites them later on, but it ended up being a laugher, which I did not see that. 4-2. Usually this team wins 4 games all year. So this is a weird feeling. And I live in the Philly area. They never pick up Jets games on the locals channels down here, unless it's a national game, like a Thursday game or something. They never do that. And for them to be good enough to get the Fox #1 broadcast team, Burkhart and Olsen, that is strange to see. I'm not cautiously optimistic, but so far so good. I think it also says more that the Packers are frauds, especially losing 2 weeks in a row the way that they have. Rodgers has looked very unimpressive. I wouldn't call him done, but he's definitely trending downwards, as a 38 and 30 or 39-year-old quarterback should. Not quite to the level of Voldemort down in Tampa, but there's a noticeable.
We'll get to him. We'll get to him. Yeah, no, you said the defense. I mean, the really good thing about this defense specifically, as of late with our defenses, they were more in the traditional bend don't break type of mentality, because the offense was so horrid that they had to be on the field more than they really should have been. So it ended up their numbers and they ended up being worse than they actually were. But this defense, not yet. This was a defense-led game. And traditionally, about late third, fourth quarter in these games, the defense would really start to let up. This defense did not let up at all. If anything, they kept their foot on the pedal all 4 quarters, all 60 minutes, and they were physical and dominant. And I almost want to say that's an understatement, just because the way, especially the D-line, manhandled what traditionally is a good Green Bay offensive line and made Aaron Rodgers really uncomfortable. I mean, we saw him before the game started. He was working on the wrist or the hand or whatever it was, and he got hit, and he ended up being the whole kind of left, his left side or what was right
Yeah.
side really bothering him, and the defense really didn't let up. Another thing that I really like to go on the other side of the ball, and you mentioned it, Zach didn't have to do much. I mean, he barely threw for 100 yards, and he game managed, even though he really isn't a game manager style of a quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think that was great because he didn't try and do too much. The run game was working, and they didn't try and veer away from that. They stuck with what was
Hmm.
working. Hey, if Green Bay came out and changed the formula and really made the Jets do something else, then we would have seen what have happened. But they didn't, and they stuck with that run game. Brees Hall was phenomenal. Let's not forget Michael Carter helped out too. And I just really am a fan of just the chemistry and just how hard they want to fight for these wins. And I gotta say, hey, these receipts, man, he is so far so good. And there's nothing really we can say. And I'm really so far impressed and really have not that many bad things to say. I mean, yeah, there were still times like you mentioned with the play calling, and they really at the end of the game should have gotten that touchdown to punch it in. They had so many tries. Yes, Green Bay did help
Yeah.
them with some of the penalties and stuff, but they had about 10 tries and they really should have scored that touchdown. But look, at that point, we're kind of almost nitpicking, but
Yeah.
it's just they have a game coming up against the Broncos, which I mean that the way they
Speaking of quarterbacks that look like they're done.
you got to go in, you got to get a win,
Yeah.
and
With
yeah, no, and we're about to go to you mentioned it with Aaron Rodgers and stuff. I mean, 3-3. What's it looking like up in Titletown?
I think there's some trouble up there. I think that losing Devontae Adams is a huge blow. They tried to downplay it, but Rodgers not having that security blanket, he's always had throughout his whole career. Rodgers has always had that one security blanket wide receiver. Yes, there's been legitimate gripes about him not having enough weapons, which has been true. But there's always been one, whether it's Greg Jennings, whether it's
Nelson,
Adams,
Jordy
there's
Nelson.
been Jordy Nelson. That was like there's been a few of them over the years. It's gone one right to the next, right to the next. They're trying to make something out of Lazard, and Lazard definitely had his flashes yesterday, but they're really it's still an adjustment, and he's not able to do anything. The Packer running game is solid though. That is so they still have a lot to figure out. The NFC North division is winnable for almost every team except for the Bears at this point. And the NFC North is looking like what we thought the NFC East was going to be, where first 1 to 10 wins probably wins it. I don't know what to make of Minnesota.
I'm still
now.
a little bit.
I'm not really that impressed with the Vikings. The Lions have been impressive just from the fact that they're not, junk like they normally are. I mean, their offense has been surprising, but their defense is putrid, losing games 48-45.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure what the Vikings have, and from what I've seen so far out of the Packers, Rodgers has taken a noticeable step back, and the NFC North is not a given for them like everybody thought that it would be. And I think it is, I wouldn't say panic time, but there is definitely cause for concern.
Yeah, I would even say maybe somewhere in between. I think if you were to go, I actually didn't even see their schedule, what their next game is. If they were to fall to 3-4, or you really go into your bye week at 500 or one game above or below, I mean, how great do you really feel coming off what they have done in the last couple, 2 to 3 years, especially since hiring LaFleur, Rodgers with his 2-time back-to-back MVPs. it is a bit of a cliff that they seem to have fallen off of. We saw the one play against the Jets, or I would say for the Packers offense, that kind of impressed me, or really like made me sit back, and I was like, damn, like that's a great play, was that pass down to Lazard on that third down where he couldn't have handed Lazard the ball better. Just that
Yeah,
perfect placement. I mean, the Jets, they're, say what you want about how great they're playing. At the end of the day, they're still rookie,
yeah,
defensive backs. So, and it's still Aaron Rodgers. He's still going to be able to make a play like that or so. But it's he doesn't have that. Even if Lazard is that guy, he's not the number
yeah,
one receiver where you can put 90, or I would say 80 or to 90% of your passing game on
yeah.
that one receiver, and then you have a couple of other receivers to really balance it out.
Right.
We don't. Lazard is not that, and he doesn't have the chemistry, or the new receivers don't have the experience
Yeah.
to really, build something that is somewhat of a dangerous Packers offense.
Yeah. And
They're no, go ahead. The run game with Dylan and Aaron Jones can still be there. I think it
yeah,
might be time to rethink the offensive approach.
especially now with what I was jumping in to say was Cobb is going to be out a few weeks
Yep.
with an ankle injury
Or
after
is he
that.
the Cobb
So
of the old days that
yeah,
he was able to rely on? Yep.
yeah. So now Cobb is out for a bit. Their upcoming schedule is not too great. They have 3 straight road games. They have at Washington, which okay, that's good.
Well,
And,
Carson Wentz is out now, but it's crack a
yeah,
beer. It's Heineke time.
yep.
Okay.
So we got
So
at Washington,
yeah.
and at Buffalo on a Sunday night game, and then at Detroit, and then Dallas at home. So that's their next 4 coming up. After that Washington game, those other 3 are going to be tough. So we will see over the next 4 games for sure just how much trouble Green Bay is in.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I definitely, I'm not going 100% panic, but we're creeping up there. We mentioned him before, our favorite quarterback, Lord Voldemort. What have we seen down in Tampa? They just lost to the terrible Steelers. They are also 3-3. What are we thinking about this situation?
I think that at 45 and with whatever marriage problems and all of those years of plant-based diet, like he even just looks sickly. Just looking at him, the Voldemort. We made the Voldemort joke for a while, but he
We
really
have
looks gaunt, like some kind, like Voldemort or some other kind of villain. Like he does not look well. So clearly, all of the stress of all the marriage stuff, team issues. Our old friend Todd Bowles actually came out and said in the post game that anybody still thinking this is a Super Bowl team was, quote, in fantasy land. Um, so there's some real issues down there, but also at 3-3, they are still tied for the NFC South lead, which just shows how pathetic the rest of that division is. So again, a division that has turned out to be disappointing so
Yeah.
far for all 4 teams. Meanwhile, the NFC East has 3 of the best teams, which none of us expected that. Especially not, you have the Eagles at 6-0, the Giants 5-1, and the Cowboys 4-2
Mhm.
after an epic matchup last night with the Eagles and Cowboys. That rivalry, for all of the juice that it's had for decades, has lost some of that juice lately. And we bring on Obi Spencer. How you doing?
Good, good. I hear you talking about that Cowboy-Eagle rivalry. I apologize for my lateness.
Yeah,
That's all right. No, we are going to get to your Eagles in a moment, but we were just talking about our favorite guy, Lord Voldemort himself, Tom Brady. My big thing is just like I really feel like we've gotten to the point where he has reached his Michael Jordan as a Washington Wizard stage, where yes, he's still good, right? MJ will still put up 20 points, right? There'll still be some times where Brady can throw for 200, 250, 2 or 3 touchdowns, and they'll win. But I don't see, and look, we're 6 weeks in. Like, this is not a small sample size, nor is this a rookie or first year. I mean, this is Tom F. and Brady. This is 22 years of a sample size. We take these 6 games now, and this seeming to become a habit. Now, I mean, this really could be the cliff, that is fallen off of. And of course, that cliff is so astronomically high that I mean, he's still way up there coming down, but like eventually you're going to hit the ground. And I just don't like the trajectory of how this continues to play out week after week. I don't even want to, touch on the personal life stuff with him, because that's not where we go on this show. But just on a football stance, a physical stance, JD, you're saying he looks old. The sickly, the kind of almost I don't want to say frail, because he's still got a big guy. He's still got a frame on him. He's still got, but he doesn't look like he's. I don't know. It's just not there anymore.
I completely agree, and I think it's been a slow decline for Brady, unlike what we saw with his counterpart Manning. But if we go back to the last Super Bowl he won, with all due respect, that defense won them that Super Bowl. I mean,
Yes.
He played better than Manning did in his last Super Bowl, but that was the defense.
Yep.
Last year, I felt that in that last game of the season, in the playoffs, it looked good because he scored 3 touchdowns, but 2 of those touchdowns were on very short fields. The one was 70, the other 2 were 30. Any other time he had to go any distance, the team failed to make it. So I felt that he was showing signs last year. That was my guess on why he retires, that he honestly felt old. And this year it's looking even worse. Now, I know he doesn't have the same level of weapons, but this is Tom Brady. He won Super Bowls with defensive backs as his number 1 wide receiver. And if this defense on Tampa Bay isn't going to be super stellar, I think he's looking old. And I think that I like the comparison to Jordan with the bullets, because it's not completely like he's done, where you watched Peyton Manning and you went, oh, the glory's over. There's enough
or Drew Brees in that playoff game where you could tell that he just was done, during that Saints-Bucks playoff game.
Right. There's just enough spark to keep us as fans watching, knowing that it's more Brett Favre, since it's football. And you guys are well aware what that was like at the end, and he just refusing to be done. And that's really what it's more like than. But Jordan's also a good classic because he was the GOAT.
It just doesn't look as effortless.
Yeah.
It's he looks. It's just like trudging, trying to exert extra energy to almost compensate. And we'll see how the rest of this season approaches. We were just talking about Rodgers. If I would feel better if I'm a Bucks fan as opposed to a Packer fan, simply on the fact that I think the division, I think the Vikings are better than any other of the NFC South teams. So at least you could sit there and be like, all right, at least we still have a chance. We're still at, in first place or tied for first. You're already playing from behind a significant big 8-ball. So it's, both situations are no bueno at the very least. But Obi, now that you're here, fly Eagles fly, take it away.
Oh wow, that was great last night. The Eagles won. They now have essentially a 3-game lead on the Cowboys because of the tiebreaker.
Yep.
As people like to point out, so they are in a great position. They have 2-game lead on the rest of the NFC, which is wonderful. Look, I've mentioned this in the past about some teams. The Eagles have a quarterback who is good and underpaid, so they have a lovely set of weapons around him, a massive offensive line, a strong defense. They have everything they need to go at least to the Super Bowl to face one of those other two teams we saw play yesterday. And so I'm feeling very confident that they are right now the best team in the NFC. Of course, those words will come back to bite me in the ass, I'm sure, but they're getting enough out of their quarterback. And, we do know, and what scares me more as an Eagle fan is the economics of the NFL. You either have to have a absolute all-time great quarterback like Mahomes and Allen are proving to be, who, when they earn that ridiculous contract, it doesn't matter who you put around them, or you have to have a capable quarterback who somehow you convince to not take enough money. But if I'm a quarterback, that kind of money is so life-changing. Forget winning. So the Eagles have 2 years more to try to get a nice Super Bowl in with this team before you have to pay Hurts, because he's playing well enough to get that Dak contract, to get that Kirk Cousins contract, to get that Russell Wilson contract. That's what you get when you're a capable quarterback, and then you just hope that the team finds a way to win around that money. So,
I wouldn't be. I think that especially after the Carson Wentz experiment blew up in their face, I think that the Eagles will be slow to give Hurts that money. Yes, he's going to want that Dak contract, but I think they're going to ride it out and then franchise him after. Because I think that the Eagles will understandably be gun shy, short of a Super Bowl appearance. But that is possible.
I think any team in the NFL, I don't care who that quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you give him the rookie extension, and then you can start negotiating. You got 3 years of three more. Just do that. Don't be stupid. Wait at least take the 4-year, first year, 4-year, $404 million a year contract. Then the rookie extension that brings him up to 12 or whatever it's going to be, and then you can negotiate because you have 3 years to keep him. And if he can't, that's what you have to do. I think if you're the Eagles or any other team. Sorry, Burrow. Sorry, Herbert. The idiots were the ones who signed that contract ahead of time. The Giants are doing the right thing with Daniels. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing with Hurts specifically, though, is that Hurts as a second-round pick does not have the year 5 option. That's only first-round picks that get that. So it's just a straight 4-year deal. He's now in year 3. Will be eligible for the extension, which I don't think they should give him. I agree. Because after all of the bad quarterback extensions that have blown up badly, and I believe Kyler Murray is headed down that same path. And Russell Wilson, I said in our group chat as soon as that news came out, I said this is a mistake giving him an extension before he's even played a single game, and it's blowing up after only 6 weeks. And I think that these teams need to show restraint with that, and the Eagles, having been burned by Carson Wentz already, I think will do the same. You have 4 years, then you have the franchise tag after that. When you get to the franchise tag in year 5, then if things are going well, that's when you negotiate a long-term extension. Now, I don't begrudge Hurts or any other player for wanting to be paid fair market value. That is their right, and they've earned that in many cases. However, because as you mentioned, Obi, with how crippling the salary cap constraints are, and quarterbacks taking up such a big percentage of that, that's why you're seeing these teams. They now should hold back a little bit.
Yeah, even in Green Bay, we're seeing that happen, right? Because I think when you talk about Green Bay versus Tampa Bay, if you told me I had to take one of those two QBs, I would today I'd take Aaron Rodgers, even though he does have a way of choking in the playoffs.
Right.
But the other 10 starters on offense, I'm going with Tampa Bay. I mean, give me Godwin, give me Evans. Don't give me these rivals. Like, that's the huge advantage Tampa Bay has, is the rest of the team. So yeah, you got to, and that's what the great thing about testing out that franchise tag year is. So what about when you take up all my salary cap? I have to cut players and build around you making that kind of money. That's a great thing about it. Can you perform in that year where you are the guy? Because if not, then you can walk and I'll start all over again with some young guy and hope that I can turn them into a successful player. we all see the risks involved in that as well, but
Right.
better than overpaying for a quarterback and then having nothing around them.
Yeah. And then back to last night's game, with the Eagles-Cowboys rivalry had been dormant for a while. And then you got the vintage Cowboys-Eagles experience, especially towards the end of that game with the shoving and the screaming between the coaches. That great clip that NBC got of Nick Sirianni colorfully saying, yeah, shut up, the game's over. In ways but in words I can't repeat. I recently heard on WIP, the sports talk station down here, which is mostly just Eagles insanity. I can only handle about 5 minutes at a time, but it's great. It's entertaining in short bursts. But I heard a host on WIP saying recently that he considered the Giants more of a rival than the Cowboys by far, because usually it's the Giants who they're fighting for a playoff spot, not Dallas, because Dallas has been mostly meh for 25 years. So so for this person who was in their 30s saying the Cowboys aren't that big of a deal because they haven't been for recent history, that I thought really said something. But then you get a game like last night and it all comes back.
So I think that guy's talking out of his tuchus, because the Giants have been absolutely miserable since 2017, as we are pointed out multiple times on this show, that they haven't been anywhere near that
conversation. The Cowboys have been bad of recent.
But they're at least showing up and trying to get to the playoffs and fighting with the Eagles and winning divisions. The other thing is, I will tell you, last year, everyone may not remember how the season was playing out, but the Cowboys were playing the football team. And if the Cowboys won that game, the Eagles controlled their own destiny to make the playoffs, including could lose to the Cowboys that looked like a really good team last year. If the football team won that game, then the Eagles did not control their own destiny. They were behind the football team, and they still had to beat the Cowboys. So it made all the sense in the world to root for the Cowboys. And there were people calling up the station and saying, no, I can never root for the Cowboys. So there are certainly a certain amount of Eagle fans who I think put their Cowboy hatred above their Eagle love. I think on the field, the two teams themselves haven't been button heads like they used to until last night. But off the field, most of the fans I talk to, I am in fantasy football leagues with a guy who you couldn't trade him, Ezekiel Elliott, for his third-round pick 50 years from now, because he will not put a Cowboy on his team. So there, I know some they hate. Now, granted,
I wouldn't do that because Ezekiel sucks now.
Fair enough.
Forget my fandom.
But for a third-round pick 50 years from now, I would trade anybody for that. And that's the point. But that's neither here nor there. He did have a touchdown last night, though. And the truth being that all the people I am friendly with, though, they are not 30 years old. They are 40 would be the youngest.
Right. I think it's also partly an age thing. Since the person who said that dumb thing was, I think he was about his mid-30s. So he grew up with like the Donovan McNabb era, of Eagles fandom. And yes, for most of that time, the Cowboys were trash. Not so much the past 5 years compared to the Giants, but like big picture over the last 20, 25 years, I kind of understand it. I think it's dumb, as you said, but I kind of understand that logic. But again, all of that went out the window last night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's good to see.
And the Eagles need to still keep that Cowboy team they're looking at. I know that, in the fourth quarter, and it's important to know, in the fourth quarter against that great defense, Hurts drove him down the field, got the touchdown, put that game away. So there is no, when it had to get done, he got it done. Every Eagle fan, myself included, is very happy about that. Question is, that interception that was thrown to open CD Lamb, is that a pass that Dak throws, or does Dak complete that for the touchdown? Would they have been in that situation had Dak been in the game? Dak doesn't have to be that much better than Cooper Rush to win that ball game for them. So you're going to have to face him one more time this season, but you can probably lose that game and still be fine. But then in the playoffs, you better not lose to that team if that's the guys you face. And then there's still Minnesota. Minnesota is somehow winning with Kirk Cousins. And he's the kind of quarterback like you expect, he's the kind of quarterback, Kirk Cousins, that scares you because if everyone else is gelling around him, he is good enough to win a Super Bowl if you have to go through him. So you can't just write him off like people like to with him.
Yeah, and the Eagles' upcoming schedule, they have the Steelers at home this week, at Houston, Washington at home, and then at Indianapolis. That's their next 4 weeks, 2 primetime games in there. So they could really make some distance. Here. That Houston game, I think, has trap game written all over it, though. Since it's on the road. It's after the Steelers game, and then you have a division rival after it. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that. But the Eagles are for real. It's so strange having all 3 teams, the Jets, Giants, and Eagles, all being this good. None of us expected this, especially not the Jets.
Look at us.
Right. No, I was late, so I missed all the good Packer talk. But I think one of the things about the Packers is people are downplaying that they've lost to the Jets and the Giants. Like that shows that they're bad instead of going, oh, wait a second. The Jets and the Giants, they have 3 losses between them. Maybe they aren't that bad of a football team.
What I've seen it pretty balanced. I've seen both Giant credit and cause for concern, rightfully so, with Green Bay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. That's not what I have been watching and seeing today. I'm glad, and I was.
I've been surprised too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
But especially the Jet, that set up perfectly. Oh, coming back from London, the travel, that it was set up to be excuses written all over it. But no, I was actually surprised as well that a lot of pretty prominent media people actually gave Jets and the Giants too in their game against the Ravens pretty good credit. So credit on them as well. But look at us. We're like, what's like the Paul Rudd Wings video where he's like to himself, he's like, oh, look at us, everything's great. Like that's now with our 3 teams. But yes, we do have another sport that is really heating up at the moment. That is our pastime baseball. We have a prominent Game 5 tonight. Guardians, Yankees, Bronx. Yankee Stadium's going to be off the chain. But I would love to see a Guardians win.
That board meeting's going to be what do you call them? Board meetings at the Yankees?
They're lawyers meetings. It's like you go
the law firm that happens to have a baseball team. I believe
that's right. Yeah, they're a law firm that happens to have a baseball team playing.
But not today. Today they're a bunch of young lawyers.
Today will be actual really some exciting
the
playoff
sports
atmosphere. Yeah. But hey, look, Garrett Cole showed up last night.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Look, this is it now. 63 home runs. There's no bigger game than tonight. So, you don't want to go down with your 63 home runs and everyone was walking you and you got cold and you can't hit anymore. So, I think all eyes are on Aaron Judge. Every time he comes to the plate, he's going to have to, people are going to be looking at him because this slump has to end and the Yankees have to win, or 63 is going to turn into A-Rod. Maybe you should be on steroids because you're not doing anything in the playoffs will be what he gets to live with.
Yankee fans are ruthless when it comes to players who put up gaudy regular season numbers and then do nothing in the playoffs. So if this ends badly, there will be a good number of Yankee fans who say, I don't care how many home runs you hit, ship them, let him go. And in the warped logic of spoiled Yankee Nation, I understand that the playoffs are where legacies are made. So, but, history is one thing. Not having a bullpen worth squat after they've basically have exhausted their pitching staffs with the rain out, that has them up against the wall. I think Cleveland wins it tonight. But it's a game 5 at home in the Bronx, so anything could happen. I do think that whoever wins this, that they will be so wiped out that the Astros will smash them in the ALCS.
I agree. I think the Astros are playing well. They're getting regular type of rest here from their series. They just are hitting the ball all over the place and pitching well. So I think Houston is probably the team to pick, no matter who makes it through. I'm not sure what's happening in the National League, though. But before I go to that, I know that Brandon definitely has some Yankee things to say.
Well, it's just the what gets me is I understand it's still the heat of the playoffs, but the absolute nerve that Yankee fans had to boo Aaron Judge as if him alone was the reason that you are tied in this series or you were losing in the series going into last game blew my mind on top of an off season that is so crucial. I still can't get over it. And for that, almost for that reason alone, I hope they lose tonight, because as the especially the real, just not even the professional in me, just like the human in me, to see Aaron Judge leave the Yankees and just watch fandom it's gonna go all over the place. I really do think that a lot of things, serious things, need to happen should they lose this series. First and foremost, Aaron Boone needs to be gone so fast out of that stadium, out of his office. He's going to need a security detail to get out of, to get onto the expressway and get out of there. But look, they need a buck.
Cashman needs to go with him.
Yeah, but the thing with Cashman is I think the almost the Yankee nepotism won't allow it.
He's untouchable, but he shouldn't be. Boone is his patsy. This terribly constructed roster with where they don't have homegrown players anymore. It's just one free agent purchase after another. Some of them work, some don't. I mean, Judge is their only homegrown player. So that's the other thing, is that are you going to keep your own guy, or are you going to boo him on the way out of town and then wonder why he goes up and signs in Boston next week?
Which is what I've been saying for months.
But I think it's crazy. What, and in sports in general, and the Yankees are going, are the big magnifying glass of the Yankees. If this one game, if the Yankees lose, we can expect some sort of teardown. And if they win, but lose to Houston, we won't. Or do they have? Or where is that line for the teardown? Can they get through Houston and then lose in the series? Where is the line that the teardown happens at? Is it this?
The line is tonight.
The line is tonight. Okay. So if they get through this game, then somehow they get to keep Judge, they keep Boone, and they keep Cashman, and look for relievers in the offseason, and DeGrom, because they'll throw all their money at him.
I'll put it this way. Boone should be gone, but I know Scott has said this as well. I don't think he will be. He should be, but there's something different. But I think that if they lose tonight, he absolutely should be. I personally think that Cashman, as the one who put this team together, should go with him. They need a full teardown and rebuild. Do I think they're going to do that? No. The law firm is all about printing money at this point. They're not going the extra mile and throwing out the crazy money to win like they used to. Not like George did. back in the day. Think of it this way. Their payroll now is about the same as it was 15 years ago, the 200-ish million range. So their expenses are about the same. Well, on-field payroll expenses at least. But their revenues have doubled or tripled in that time. They're printing money. And just look at the difference between Hal and Steve Cohen. Where Steve Cohen said something, oh, you can put a pretty good team together for $300 million. Well, he's probably going to have to blow past that number this offseason if he wants to re-sign everybody. We will see how that goes. But I don't think that the Yankees do not have the let's throw the biggest bag of cash at everybody we can mentality that has defined the Yankees for decades. They don't really have that anymore. They do a bit here and there, but something's different now. Whether it's Hal versus George, whether it's Cashman being complacent, whether it's Boone, who's basically just I call him the Autobot. As most managers in baseball are just Autobot patsies for the front office and analytics department. The ones that are still the better managers in the game are the more old school ones who aren't do that. I think Buck. I think Dusty Baker. Those types.
I said go get Joe Madden.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Madden comes though. I think
that's a different story, but you got to have that type of aggressive, real guys that man the ship, that manage a freaking baseball team and not run a business.
Right.
Not that Boone is running a business, but it's just this mentality of like, put your best team out there, make the best baseball decision for the team. And I think that's what, and to your point with Steve Cohen, now that he's had somewhat of a quote unquote successful season or respectable season, or however you want to put it, as taste of the playoffs, I think he might be more inclined to push that number, maybe even to 375, possibly 400. So I think there is some hope in that. But I just, with the Yankees side of it is, yeah, I mean, this is a really... This is a very thin ice situation that this organization is built on right now, and we'll see how it is. But I think both teams are going to get smashed by the Astros in the next round. So at that point, it's at that point you're saying, well, I mean, were the Yankees even that good? I mean, they were just so tired from facing the Guardians that they had no choice. So I can almost see Yankee fans and the Yankees, some Yankee in the higher ups almost using that as an excuse to keep things the way they are and to go into next season with pretty much the same thing. Just bring the band back together as is and don't make any changes.
And any of the Yankee fans will tell you, as we've heard multiple Yankee fans say regularly, that even they know the deal. This team is, without Judge, this is a 500 team. Like, there's really nothing there. Like, you have Garrett Cole and Nestor, and not much else in the pitching. The bullpen is garbage. Most of that lineup can't get clutch hits when they need to. They leave a ton of runners.
Still can't stay healthy.
Yeah, Stanton can't stay healthy, and he's untradeable. They're stuck with him unless they're retaining nearly all of his salary. Judge is clearly wiped out from the home run chase. So you remove Judge from that equation, there isn't much left. I mean, Cole got it done last night to his credit, but I'm not even sure who's starting tonight off the top of my head. But Cleveland is going with a bullpen game. It's going to be crazy. The playoffs in one sentence so far are I could sum up as Astros and chaos, because that's what we have. Especially in the National League, where the hottest team is the one that got in on the playoff spot that didn't exist last year, the Phillies. And the Padres blew through the Mets and then subsequently the Dodgers. Then the Phillies, beat the Braves, who up until September, that September series was pretty
And St.
competitive
Louis.
between the two of them. But the Braves ran through the Phillies for most of the season. The Phillies are getting hot at the right time. You have the Eagles at 6-0. You have the Phillies in the NLCS. You have the Union with the number 1 seed in the MLS in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I smell destiny in the air in Philly, and the Marcus Hooker Pirates, but mostly destiny.
And the Sixers this upcoming year. Let's not sleep on the Sixers.
Nobody here sleeping on the Sixers.
I'm vicariously in Miami over here. I'm afraid of the Sixers. So
I will hold judgment on the Sixers until they start playing, just because of how disappointing the end of last season was. I do think Harden comes back with a vengeance this year though. So there will be a bounce back. It depends on Embiid's health. So we shall see.
It's two things. Can Embiid play 60 games and then all the way through the playoffs? And who is James Harden? Like, that's the question. Like, who is he? Is he a guy who is on his way down? And if he is, he's going to take another step back. Or is he a guy who had a hurt leg who's trying to get through the season because he really forced his way out and onto this team? And has he recovered and just be 1-2% better than he was last year for the whole season? And Maxey, I'm very excited about that team. We got that boy from your Miami Heat, and yeah.
You took my guy.
You
took my 3-and-D corner 3-point specialist.
Yes, which is exactly what they need, and his name is totally just blanking out here. So apologies for calling him a boy, because he's not. Right. He's a real man, but he's on our team now, so we'll be that'll be our 4 guys. And
so I mean, and you mentioned we're going to take a little bit of a turn here. We have about 8-10 minutes left on the show here. You mentioned Union doing well, number 1 seed. A little bit of an MLS playoff update on the way here.
Yeah, so since the Union had the number 1 seed, they get they got to watch the first round. They'll be playing FC Cincinnati, who came back from down 1-0 to beat the Red Bulls 2-1. Cincinnati is the one team I didn't want to see, because Cincinnati is the Union several years ago. Pat Noonan was actually Jim Curtin's assistant before he became the Cincinnati coach. So they're building the team the same way, and they gave the Union fits the 2 times they played this year. They were the last of what I called tie-up-palooza earlier this year, where they had something like 8 draws in 10 games. But Cincinnati beat the Union handily for the game in Cincinnati in August. So I think it'll be a very tight one. I do think that the Union will work through it and win a squeaker, which we're not used to seeing in Subaru Park. But with the Union playing at home, it will be tight, but it is the most intimidating place to play in MLS this year. As far as the rest of the Eastern Conference, you had Montreal beating Orlando 2-0. And, of course, NYCFC playing Miami tonight, which is why we're running unsupervised without Scott here.
Yeah, we are.
But also how this relates to the other topic, as we were talking about with the buys in baseball, leading to 2, possibly 3 of the teams that had buys being caught flat-footed and beaten by the team that played the week before. So that is a concern, because that's happened a lot in MLS, most notably last year, where the New England Revolution, who won the Supporters' Shield, had a 23-day break between games before they played NYCFC in the second round at home and lost. So because of that weird quirk, this will only be 10 days between games. So that is a much shorter layoff that I think should hopefully be enough where the Union aren't too rusty. So I think that they should work out fine with that.
Yeah, and like we were saying with baseball's by, like we were talking about, I just think it's one of those things where you just got to keep the bats rolling.
Mhm.
I mean, like 2 or 3 games, like, yes, they're competitive, high stakes playoff games, but in doing that, you're keeping the bats hot. You're keeping guys
Right.
warm and engaged in games where you can go into a round with a team that you lost the division by almost seemingly 100 games in the Padres to the Dodgers and completely roll them. So,
Yeah.
and that week, even though it was just a wild card weekend, I don't know, that day off from regular season to the start of the division series felt like a long time.
Yeah,
It definitely
So,
was.
and in baseball, and we'll have yet to see how it comes in years to come. But as of now, I don't see it really being that much of an advantage. And we had talked about it a lot just because of the Mets situation. But at this point, that's a moot point, and
Right.
we don't know what would have happened had it been the other way around.
Yeah.
Um, if with the Phillies, had they gone into that DS division series against the Mets, if it would have been the same thing. So yeah, these
Yeah.
buys, even in football, still not a guarantee. It's just
Mhm.
it really depends. It can go either
well,
way. It can
in
either
football,
hurt you or helps you.
it should be noted in football when it used to be the 6 teams, the 4 playoff teams, that had the bye, they won 75% of their games. So those now,
Yes.
granted, those teams were also better, and I think a week off in football is something is different than a week off in other sports. Especially if you play your week 17 game for real and then take
Mhm.
that week off. But it
Yeah,
was
that I think was always the issue that you saw with a lot of the teams. Like the Colts. It felt like every year,
yeah,
where they was essentially where they would just roll over for that last game, so they have essentially 2 full weeks off. That I think is where football teams made the big mistake. But now with the one bye, that as opposed to two, that's a bit less of an issue.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we'll pivot over to college football. Not something we normally cover, but Saturday's showing with the Tennessee Alabama game was so nuts that Obi has some thoughts. I
Oh,
just watched a few of the videos before the show of the insanity afterwards, and I see what you meant about how it was both awesome and horrifying at the
yeah.
same time.
So just first, I'm not. None of us on this show seem to be large college football fans. I'll catch 2 or 3 games a year, and this was one I caught. Tennessee versus Alabama was on at a perfect time for me to be watching a college football game, and it was as good a game as last year's Buffalo Kansas City game, and they kept talking about it. Um, I turned it on. Alabama was already down 7-0, and it just kept going from there. They went down by 18. Alabama went up by 7. Then you had to come back the other way. There was probably some bad coaching calls by both teams. There was a roughing the passer call that they reviewed. This guy's crown of his helmet hit the other guy's face mask. They didn't
Ooh,
call it on the field. They reviewed it and still didn't call it. Now,
wow.
I thought it was a roughing the passer, but I was like, okay, fine, let them play football. Great, let them play football. Just a madcap game, which came down to a field goal that went through the uprights. Look, I think it got blocked actually for a 50 something yarder. I think it just got tipped because the ball never flew right. And then the insanity ensued. You had the rushing of the field, which there are certain. I'm always torn about how I feel about
Hate it.
that. Yeah,
Hate it.
you're in your 20s. You want to do something fun. You probably had way more beer than you're legally allowed to have because you're not 18, you're not 21 yet, and you rushed the field. They tore down the goalposts, and then they marched the goalposts out of the stadium and then down the streets in Knoxville, Tennessee. And yet, as crazy as that is total
And tossed it
destruction
in the
of the
river.
tossed it in the river. Everything looked organized. It looked like it had been planned. Like everyone involved knew what to do. It was crazy. This one guy got on top of the goalpost and was riding it, and nobody was fighting him, pulling him down. Like, all right, that's the guy who's riding it. That's Joe. It was it was pure college joy. And yes, I kind of hate it too. Like Stay in the
All right.
stand.
Well,
Protect
I
the
didn't see the video. Maybe I'll give an exception for that.
The video of them trying to of the guy riding the goalpost as they were trying to figure out how to turn it to fit through the gate to get out of the stadium was fantastic. And I agree that it was just rushed in the field. I think is okay to a point, but when the wanton property destruction, of tearing the field apart, tearing down the goalposts, and all that, I think is a bit much. Each venue handles it differently. Like at Prudential Center for Seton Hall games, they don't have any court storming. Their security is, gets a heck of a perimeter, and if somebody breaks through it, they get leveled. There was a video a few years ago of a kid who broke where after a big victory, he broke through the line, and you just see a security guard come from the side, bam, tackle him like a linebacker before he even got past the cheerleaders. So just it's both awesome and concerning.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. The whole time I watched it in awe, like, this is not supposed to happen. This is bad. Yet it looks surprisingly safe and well. Or how is this happening? This spontaneousness, and yet it's organization. So I do encourage anyone who hasn't seen videos of it to watch it. You will be aghast. Like I said, both emotions will be going through your head especially if you're older. If you're in your 20s, you probably think I'm an old fuddy-duddy. And I can tell you, when I was in my 20s, I would have thought I was an old fuddy-duddy. So I forgive you not having my experiences in life. But it was something, and it was a great game. It was such a good game. The kind of game that makes you go, you know what? Next time I see a couple of top 10 teams facing each other, I'll be sure I sit my butt down and try to catch that game. So it was a good day for college football, to say the least, from my eyes.
Yeah, and it's always better when the villain goes down. We're seeing Bama and Nick Saban go down brings warmth to the hearts of everybody else in the SEC.
As somebody said when I posted best college football game I've seen in a long time, and the first comment on my feed after that was, and the right team won. So, yeah, absolutely. And that was another Rutgers fan, so certainly impartial in theory.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap this up very quickly. But last, I want to get into these upcoming NBA season. We just mentioned the Sixers. I mentioned my Heat. I think this is going to be another, great entertaining season. Of course, it'll be a slow start. We'll get to Christmas, New Year's, then it'll really take off. A couple interesting points and storylines throughout this season. This insane asylum that is the Brooklyn Nets. That's just going to be all-time stuff to watch. I think the East is going to be the same kind of 4 or 5 teams, maybe 6 now, with adding Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs. The Bucks, Sixers, my Heat. The Cavs will be up there, and I think that will be a fun race in the West. Also, I think it's kind of a bit of a jumble. We'll see if the Warriors take a step back. We'll see the other insane asylum that's going on with the Lakers. We'll see what the Clippers do. But one thing, LeBron will pass Kareem January 31st, I believe, 31st, at Madison Square Garden. It will be a very calculated move to break Kareem's record at the Garden. And another side point, he will make it to 40,000 career points before it's all said and done.
Okay, that's a lot to digest. The only I think what you said is I pretty much agree with. We're going to have, I think it's going to be a 16 race in the East. I don't know if the best team will be in the East, but it's going to be a more competitive side of the bracket. And in the West, I mean, you lost a team with Utah with the Donovan move. Maybe the Pelicans make some noise. Zion says he's playing Wednesday, but I don't think. Even if they make noise, they are not making noise to win to come out of the West. It's really, could the Clippers be healthy, Phoenix and the Warriors?
I think Zion Williamson, injury or no injury, is the most overrated player of the past decade.
See, the thing
I'm
is
not
that
believing
I don't
anything.
even.
I'm not believing anything from the Pelicans until I see him actually live up to any of that hype. I also think Phoenix takes a step back, especially with after all of the nonsense of Robert Sarver, Chris Paul coming back to earth. So I think so with that's Utah and Phoenix. I think that will be falling down from the top tier. Who's a bigger mess, the Lakers or the Nets? That's a tough call.
The Nets, just because of the unpredictability.
Yeah, I think the Lakers, you know that they're fighting for a bottom seed, and then you go, hey, can LeBron carry him through the playoffs? Where the Nets, you don't know what that is. That's just chaos.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna, by definition of they're more chaotic, I'm gonna say they're a bigger mess. But they may be
Right.
easily could be a much better team when all is said and done. But the chaos level is through the roof.
The chaos level I would like to see is Kyrie and Westbrook traded for each other.
That's like that's an NBA fan chaos pipe dream, but I think that didn't happen this offseason. It's not gonna happen.
Now we're starting to play some 2K over here.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts before we go. Obi, you want to start?
I got nothing. Thanks for letting me come on late, guys. I'm sorry I missed the kickoff.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. My final thoughts is if a garbage Monday Night Football game gets higher ratings than a Game 5 of winner-take-all baseball playoff series, then we should not call baseball national pastime anymore.
Yep. It's one game, too, so it's one. There's no excuse. And it's you know what? Don't put the Broncos on Monday or Thursday or any primetime games anymore. And speaking of the Broncos, Jets, Broncos next week. If Jets win that game, guaranteed wild card team. Book it. That's my final thought.
You're scaring your fellow fan over there. That's all I'm saying.
All right, gents.
They guarantee nothing except agita.
More heartbreak.
All right, gents. Another week with you guys. It was awesome. We will reconvene next week with a whole new array of topics. And we'll see you guys next week. For JD, for Obi, for Scott also, that's here on the Sports Den. Have a good time.